What you don't measure, you can't improve.
So joining me on the line today, I've got Tom Green, who is the Mindful Growth Hacker. And I think there's no better time than right now to be thinking about growth hacks for your mind. So welcome to the call, Tom.
Hi, thanks very much for having me on the line today, David. It's great to be with you.
Look, obviously you're in that sort of technology sector, and maybe before we even start, tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Thomas Green. I am the founding member of the Really Conscious Group, and we are a growth and transformation agency. We help people with sales and marketing optimization, but also underlying that, the technical architecture to allow their data to be available, their systems to work, and their businesses to be optimized from a process point of view.
So this time in the economy must be a bit of a boon for you, because the amount of technology uptake that's happened in the past 3 months has been the equivalent of maybe 3 to 5 years in terms of people needing to use like Zoom and all the technology to work from home.
Yeah, so I'm definitely finding there's been growth. In a lot of conversations, some of the live training that I've been in has been paused because we're now looking at how we can do it in a video chat like this.
Yeah.
But absolutely, people are reaching out and going, right, how do we systemize and optimize our business? How do we turn into process what we've been doing? And how do we leverage technology to automate and also to cost optimize what we're doing?
So let's start with you, because obviously you've been affected by this whole sort of lockdown, and it's sort of a hand in a glove. What have you done to navigate the current economic climate?
Well, funnily enough, I struggled a little bit with a couple of my projects got put on hold, one with a utility company, and it was like, okay, so being a growth hacker, the number one question that you ask is, okay, so how do I pivot?
Yeah.
And so I just went, well, everybody's locked up at home right now. Lots of people around the world are going to be losing their jobs or at least retrenched.
Yeah.
So there's never a better time to go out and hire people.
Right.
So in the last 2 months, I've hired 20 people around the world and have accelerated the plans for one of my businesses. And we now are moving forward at a vast rate of knots. We're building an online training center around growth hacking and really pushing things forward.
So obviously that's the opportunity that you see for yourself. What about for the business community in general? What sort of opportunities do you see out there?
So there's two things to look at. One is present and then one is future preparation. So the present is while we've got a bit of breathing space, there's I know that trade's down a little bit for some people, or it's up for a lot of people. There's some government support and also some tax breaks. So really investing in making sure that we have the systems, the architecture, the software, the technology that allows us to get those automated business processes in our business, standard operating procedures, which then allow us to scale without any fuss or hassle. Because the one thing that's true that I know from a recession is that it does filter out people, but those that are doing a great job, looking after their customers and providing a great service are the ones that stay, while those that are overcharging, fleecing their customers that weren't doing well are the ones that will go, or mismanaged businesses.
So it's a bit of a cleaning out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so my family had a chain of retail toy shops back in the UK in the early 90s. And when we saw a recession in the UK, I remember my dad deciding to move ourselves from one branch to, we grew to 30 branches in 2 years, when there was so much, everybody was shutting shops, which meant there was loads of deals on. And all you need to do is grow your market share, even in a shrinking market.
Yeah. So really that whole idea of, well, the economy is shrinking, it actually should be exciting times for the entrepreneur, because it's a time to grab market share, right?
Yeah. And actually, I think there's a massive trend that's been happening over the last 5 years. It's called a mega trend, but in actual fact, it's been accelerated because of the current environment. And that is this move towards a more conscious business model, where we are looking for purpose that transcends profit maximization. We're looking to have those relationships with our customers and to really look after our customers, as opposed to looking at how can we maximize yield. Although we do want to maximize yield, but not at the cost of service, customers, and all that sort of stuff.
Right, so it's more about the social awareness and making sure there's a win-win scenario rather than the fleecing and the capitalizing on people's poor situations, right?
Absolutely, and the reason why that's so important, David, is because we're talking about digital transformation, and we're talking about the growth curve of digital. Well, things are speeding up, and I'm not going to go into the mathematics of it, but just let me tell you that we are at some point fairly soon going to see the same amount of change we've seen in the last 100 years in a little under 6 years. With it's just when AI starts really taking hold of the economy and in grip. And a lot of what companies have started to do, because of what's just recently happened, is implement that whole AI. And so now is the time that we are to build our relationship with our customers, get our customers to trust us, and really to look after our customers, because when it goes technical and there's less human interaction, they will remember the brands that were there for them in the times of strife.
Right. So it's really just preparing the relationships for what's coming in the future.
Yeah.
You're obviously talking about accelerated acceleration and the rate of change that's occurring right now. And it's interesting because even COVID has demonstrated exponential growth to people who didn't understand it. Saying,
and that's it.
A few sick people, the next day, there's 20, the next day there's 40, next day there's 80, within a month, the whole country. So
yeah, and I've for a long time I've been talking about what's called hyperbolic growth, which is the next growth curve from exponential. It makes exponential look like no growth at all.
Right.
But the challenge is that people never really understood what exponential was, and thanks to a virus, now they have, right?
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me, what are the personal lessons that you're taking out of this current sort of change that's occurring?
So our family have been a bit different anyhow. We've always had a very proactive approach to our health. Yep. We've always had a proactive approach to things. And so therefore, we're just continuing doing more of what we have been doing before. But it's a good reminder to take the time, look after yourself, nourish yourself. I'm not able to go to the gym right now, so I'm doing home workouts. And really, one of the things that, from a personal level, me and my wife have talked about is we are going to use every available moment to cherish the opportunities to go to museums and parks, because we just don't know when the next surge might happen and there might be another lockdown.
It's interesting, isn't it? So we really become conscious of, being present.
Yes.
Mindfulness and actually sort of stopping to smell the roses. Yeah.
Funny you should say that, David. I live in an estate where there's a lot of old Europeans, retired Europeans. And so a lot of those ladies, they tend to their gardens and they all have roses. And when I walk to the bus, I never fail to stop and smell roses. Did you know that different roses have different smells?
Yeah, well,
different colours, they have different smells.
I didn't sort of think that through, but I suppose there you go.
Yeah.
Stopping and smelling the roses. So
it's just a reminder to stay present, and having those anchors, because the biggest challenge that we will find as business leaders in today's environment is there's an echo chamber of media, social media, and news. And if we don't be careful, it begets this environment of fear. And that environment of fear lowers our capacity of thought and intelligence and makes us make irrational decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've had out of this is watching people go crazy into hysteria and saying, you're not helping yourself by becoming hysterical. You're actually causing a bigger problem. And I think there's a sort of mental well-being problem that's emerging as a result of all of this stress and anxiety as well.
I'm on the board for the Australian Suicide Prevention Foundation.
Yep.
And the figures are staggering. We have just under 9 people die every day of suicide in Australia as a statistic. 11 people every hour attempt suicide. It's a real phenomenal. And so that's why positive mental health and mindfulness is the solution that all of us need to implement in the career, in the culture of our businesses, to support our staff so they can be the best people they can be to help with this digital transformation.
Yeah, awesome. So Tom, just on a different tangent, the best piece of a business advice you've ever had?
Measure. What you don't measure, you can't improve. From a growth hacker's point of view, the metrics are incredibly important, because once you have the metrics, you're able to scientifically hypothesize how you can change and improve those and then test, analyze, and measure. So absolutely, you must have your quantification, your metrics in your business.
Yeah, well, it takes all the subjectivity out, doesn't it? Because the numbers don't lie. And I think often people are looking for, how do you think this went? And you go, I don't care how I think it went. What are the numbers?
Yeah, although I'd like to give a caveat to that, David, and that is, I was recently working with a bank, and one of the challenges was that they were using a metric which was how many calls were progressed during a period. And that metric in isolation means that the individuals that are taking those calls feel that they have to get through a call and get onto the next call. And so there's not as much room for empathy. Whereas if you look at a company like Zappos, which is the shoe company that Amazon bought in the US, they are touted as a culture, the best culture you ever see. And one of the ladies spent 8 hours on the phone to one of the customers who hadn't bought anything, just because that was what was needed in that relationship in that moment.
So really, what you're saying is numbers are important, but they can't override the sort of ethos of the business or the customer experience, customer relationship. Has to be.
That's right. We have to have both. We have to have the empirical measurement from a scientific and mathematical point of view. But we also have to remember we are not necessarily logical beings. We are human, and there has to be empathy and social.
So tell me, favorite book of all time?
You know, when I was thinking about that, I don't have one favorite book. I'm an absolute avid reader, and there's a few books that I'll just quickly rattle off 3 titles. So I'm all about the marketing and the growth and the systemization. So Jay Abraham, Getting Everything Out of Everything You've Got. There was a book by Mark Joyner called The Irresistible Offer. And then there's another one that I've just read called The Leaky Funnel that talks about, if you imagine your customer journey as a funnel, like you're pouring liquid into it, if it's got holes and they're dripping out the side, how do you patch those holes up, make it quicker and work better? Yeah.
Interesting that you got 3, because it's a hard question for me to ask when people say, what's your favorite book? I said, I've read over 1,000, maybe 2,000 books. Ask me which day. I have love affairs with some of them, and they just go for a long time. Some are just a sort of, an overnight thing. So there's so many great sort of authorities out there that we can listen to. Look, I'm conscious of time. And one last question for you. Your number one piece of advice you would give to someone in business right now?
Use this time wisely. Make sure you communicate with your customers from a human-to-human point of view, not just the mail automation, marketing automation point of view. Yet at the same time, make sure you're establishing processes within your business that can be automated, so you can free up time and resources by doing things automated, so that you can allow your humans, the customers, your culture, to have the best conversations, which will enrich your brand going forwards.
Yeah, awesome. You managed to get everything into that one piece of advice.
Thanks.
Well done. Thanks so much for your time today, Tom.
No problem. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to speaking again soon. Bye.
Bye.